In my past life, my sister and I married into the Miller family at the same time. She despised the eldest son, Arthur, for being gloomy and paranoid, so she rushed to choose the second son, Julian, who was known for his cold and ascetic nature, devoted to meditation. However, she could not endure the loneliness and ended up having an affair during their marriage. As a result, Julian bound her with prayer beads and threw her to the wealthy elites to be humiliated and toyed with. Meanwhile, I married Arthur, a hopeless romantic. I managed all his assets and lived a life of love and prosperity. In a fit of rage, my sister, Olivia, pushed me off a high building and I fell to my death. My body shattered into pieces. When I opened my eyes again, we had both returned to the day of our engagement. This time, Olivia's face was twisted with malice as she suddenly shoved me into Julian's arms. Julian has already admired you for a long time. He won't marry anyone but you, she declared. Go on, sister. Don't be shy. Call him husband already. I sneered as I watched Olivia shyly throw herself into Arthur's embrace. My dear sister, let me take a wild guess. How long do you think you'll survive in the hands of that twisted pervert who enjoys playing with men dressed as women? At the Miller family's engagement banquet just a moment ago, Olivia was still telling our parents that she would only marry Julian, yet in the next second, she pushed me straight into his arms. Her delicate and flawless face carried a malice and madness far beyond her years. Julian has already fallen for you. He won't marry anyone else. Don't be shy, sister. Hurry and greet him. Call him husband already. Without waiting for my response, she suddenly shoved me into his chest. Her unexpected action left everyone in the hall stunned. I instinctively reached out to grab the table beside me for support, but before I could, a pair of strong hands caught me first. A faint scent of sandalwood lingered around him. It was Julian. He was a true gentleman. He steadied me and then quickly let go. Miss Elena, be careful, he said in a deep, unreadable voice. As expected of a devout seeker raised in temples since childhood, he carried himself with an air of detachment, as if removed from worldly affairs. If I hadn't known that in my past life he had used prayer beads to restrain Olivia for 3 days before throwing her to the rich playboys, I might have actually believed in his saintly image. Lowering my gaze, I feigned shyness and softly murmured, "Thank you, Julian." Men care about appearances, especially powerful men. If I showed even the slightest discomfort or distaste, he might become wary of me. That would only make the days ahead harder. Olivia had played this move well, forcing me into this marriage. When I looked up, I caught a glimpse of triumph flashing in her eyes. So she had been reborn too, and she had returned to this crucial moment. But even if she hadn't pushed me toward Julian, I would have chosen him myself. After all, he was merely indifferent to women, uninterested in love, but his wealth was endless, and he gave his wife complete freedom so long as she didn't cross his bottom line. Arthur, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. Not only was he depraved and perverse, but he had a fetish for men dressed as women. The people around him were all well-dressed beasts in disguise. In my past life, the only reason he treated me so well was because I controlled the company's financial lifeline. I held the power to destroy him at any moment, so he put on the act of a devoted husband under my watchful eyes. If Julian was a ruthless wolf, then Arthur was a venomous snake, cunning and cruel. Congratulations, dear sister, you've chosen the absolute worst possible path for yourself. The people around us were already looking at Olivia differently. Still, she quickly regained her composure, flashing a soft, gentle smile. My little sister has always been timid, she said sweetly. I've taken care of her since we were children. I know how shy she is, so I figured I'd help her out. She turned to me with a look of false sincerity. Elena, your dream has finally come true. Make sure to cherish your new husband. Julian is such a refined and gentle man. She emphasized every single word, her tone dripping with schadenfreude. She was absolutely convinced that I would suffer under his hands. But to Arthur, this scene only made Olivia seem even more considerate and well-mannered. After all, he was notorious for his debauchery, and his parents had long given up on disciplining him. Finding a wife who could keep him in check was exactly what he wanted. His lips curled into a dazzling smile. My, what a thoughtful sister you are. Olivia casually tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and smiled seductively. Her every movement was dripping with charm. Arthur was completely mesmerized. Without hesitation, he reached out his hand and invited her to the first dance of the evening. Olivia had never liked studying or thinking too hard. Her greatest love in life was dressing up, dancing, and being the center of attention. She had walked right into his trap. As the dance ended, thunderous applause filled the entire hall. Tonight, Olivia was the center of attention. She had completely ensnared Arthur. Any woman with real experience knew that men had to be strung along for a while. Only then would they truly cherish what they had. But Olivia was in too much of a hurry, terrified that I might steal him from her. That very night, she followed Arthur straight to a hotel. She really couldn't wait. The next day, Olivia called me on video, eager to flaunt her victory. She was draped in a silk camisole, her neck adorned with a massive sapphire necklace. Love bites covered her skin. With a smug smile, she said, "Elena, isn't this necklace beautiful? It's a top-tier piece from the auction worth over 30 million. Arthur was so gentle with me last night. A real man should be generous and considerate, just like him. Of course, you're marrying into the Miller family too, but tradition dictates that the eldest son inherits everything. I will be Mrs. Miller, the future head of the Fortune Group, while you'll only receive some yearly dividends from us. You were born 3 minutes after me, and that's why I'll always be above you. Now, even in marriage, I've won again. Sometimes you just have to accept fate." I let out a soft laugh and countered, "Olivia, don't you think you're celebrating a bit too soon? Everyone knows Arthur has more lovers than he can count. The moment you marry him, you'll be busy dealing with mistresses number 3, 4, and 5, who will be giving you plenty of headaches." Olivia lifted her chin confidently. That was in the past. Last night he swore to me that I'd be his only woman from now on. He even made a vow, if he ever cheated, he'd never be able to get it up again. She scoffed as if I dared to question her. He also said that before marriage, it's normal for men to have their fun. A guy as handsome and rich as him, of course he had women throwing themselves at him. But from now on, he's mine, and soon he'll be completely obsessed with me. I couldn't hold back my laughter. If men's promises were worth believing, pigs would be climbing trees by now. And we were talking about Arthur, someone who had grown up drowning in debauchery. Every inch of him was rotten to the core. With a smirk, I taunted, "You sound so sure of yourself." Olivia's smile widened with pride. "Of course. There's never been a man I couldn't get. He's already proposed to me. The wedding is next month. No budget limit. Everything will be exactly as I want. Elena, if you're regretting anything now, it's too late. Arthur is your brother-in-law. You better stay away from him. If I ever catch you trying to seduce him, I'll break your legs." Her threat was serious, and I didn't doubt for a second that she meant it. After all, in my past life, she had pushed me off a building, leaving me a shattered corpse. Naturally, I wouldn't tell her about Arthur's issues. That man had played around so much that he had caught certain diseases. Not only was he depraved in his tastes, but sometimes he even went after animals. Just thinking about it made me sick to my stomach. Meanwhile, Julian and I were officially engaged, though his cold, detached nature remained unchanged. As a devout seeker, he never appeared in person. He merely sent me millions worth of exquisite jewelry, but he was either meditating at a temple, discussing scriptures with monks, or flying abroad to seek wisdom from renowned spiritual masters. Rich, absent, and uninvolved, life was peaceful, and I lived in luxury with complete freedom. Olivia, on the other hand, filled her social media with posts flaunting her love life, endless pictures of kisses, hugs, and post-bedtime glow. Not one to back down, I countered by showing off my collection of luxury jewelry, designer bags, and exclusive auction purchases. My extravagant spending even became a trending topic online. The comment section was flooded with praise for my wealth and independence, a stunning, powerful woman with both money and beauty. Even my likes far outnumbered Olivia's. After all, everyone in our circle knew exactly what kind of man Arthur was. Frustrated, Olivia left a comment on my post. Material wealth is meaningless. The greatest gift in life is love. I immediately replied, love is expressed through gifts, my dear. My husband just gave me something even more valuable. Isn't that what love is all about? If you don't have it, it must mean you don't want it, right? That was the last straw. Furious, Olivia called me on video screaming insults. I hung up immediately. Let her stew in her own rage. Olivia and Arthur's wedding was a grand spectacle. They bought an entire private island, a fleet of luxury yachts, and even a private jet for the occasion. The guest list consisted of high-profile figures, the kind of people who frequently appeared on television. During the reception, Olivia clung to Arthur's arm, making rounds to toast the female guests, brimming with pride. Arthur played along, keeping his arm protectively around her waist, shielding her from drinks, occasionally pinching her cheek affectionately. It all looked so sweet, except, of course, it was nothing more than muscle memory for him. He had spent his entire life surrounded by women, after all. Olivia, meanwhile, was so blinded by love that she failed to notice how Arthur was exchanging flirtatious glances with women at 5 different tables. These women weren't just guests, employees, or family members. No, they were Arthur's exes and his current lovers. Every single one of them had attended his bachelor party the night before. Some of them were even male models. The host of the wedding ceremony? He had been there too. In my past life, I had gotten my hands on videos of their debauchery, using them as leverage to keep Arthur far away from me. But clearly, Olivia was still blissfully ignorant. She was so paranoid that something might happen between Arthur and me that she only dared to show off when he was in the bathroom. Holding up her hand, she flaunted a massive 16-carat pink diamond ring. Elena, isn't my ring beautiful? It's worth over $60 million. One of a kind. Truly priceless. Not to be rude, but the little trinkets you love to show off are nothing in comparison. Honestly, they're just garbage to me. I elegantly took a bite of my cake, smiling as I replied, well, at least my little trinkets belong to me. But tell me, Olivia, does that jewelry really belong to you? Her face instantly darkened. Everyone knew Arthur was rich, but not that rich. The truth was, these weren't his assets. They belonged to the Miller family's jewelry collection. He had to request permission before wearing them and return them afterward. Olivia's expression stiffened. Of course it's mine. What, you think it belongs to you instead? She glanced around the grand venue. Look at all these guests. They're all high-profile figures here to celebrate our wedding. When you and Julian get married, it won't be nearly as lively. And let me warn you, stay away from my husband. I casually tossed my finished plate into the trash and gave her a serene smile. Relax. I have no interest in garbage. But she wasn't entirely wrong. My wedding to Julian wasn't just less extravagant, it was the complete opposite of a spectacle. We simply picked an auspicious date, signed the marriage certificate, and that was it. Right after, he took me to a luxury real estate office and gifted me an entire villa estate worth billions, registering it under my name. His reasoning, you're so well behaved, you deserve a reward. His generosity was staggering. Even though I now controlled the financial assets of Fortune Group, I wouldn't have dared to spend money as extravagantly as he did. Then he delivered his classic domineering CEO speech. I'm busy. I don't have time to entertain you. Buy whatever you want. Don't bother me unless it's important. If I need you, I'll come to you. Don't argue with my parents in front of me, and don't get involved with other men. With that, he left. It was every woman's dream husband. Filthy rich, completely absent, and granting absolute freedom. I had finally hit the jackpot. But I hadn't come back from the dead just to be a trophy wife. Wealth was meaningless without power, and I had tasted the absolute freedom that came with money and influence. In this life, I had to reach even greater heights. So I started building my own empire. First, I made a fortune in the stock market, then expanded aggressively, buying land at auctions, collecting rare paintings and jewelry, and finally investing in influencer incubators and media networks. With the advantage of knowing the future, every move I made was a guaranteed win. 10 days later, Julian unexpectedly returned and invited me to dinner. In my past life, he had left the very night of Olivia's wedding, retreating to a monastery for 3 months. He only came back for his grandfather's birthday. This time, however, he was unusually courteous, even personally brewing me tea. Elena, in just 10 days of marriage, you've spent over 100 million. His voice was calm, unreadable. I wasn't fazed. I took the teacup and sipped slowly. As expected of the Miller family, even their tea was top tier and priceless. Smiling, I replied, well, black cards have a daily spending limit of 10 million here, otherwise I would have spent even more. His lips curved into a faint smirk. Aren't you afraid I'll call you a spendthrift? I set the cup down and gave him an easy smile. Only useless men complain about women spending money. But you, Julian, are no ordinary man. If I wanted the stars in the sky, you'd bring them down for me without hesitation. A woman should marry a true man like you. Besides, all the money I spent is an investment. Every cent will generate returns. And since we're married, what's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine. No man could resist such flattery. Sure enough, a hint of amusement flickered in his gaze. Seeing that my cup was empty, he poured me more tea. His movements slow and deliberate. You really are different from other women. Most are satisfied with small luxuries, but you're investing in real estate, antiques, and stocks, making waves in the market. Marrying me must feel like settling. This was his way of acknowledging my financial acumen. I chuckled. Not at all. It's just that you have the resources. Without them, I wouldn't be able to make such large-scale investments in such a short time. There was some truth to my words. Yes, I had been bold in my investments precisely because Julian had enough wealth to support them. And while the profits I made were legally considered marital assets split equally between us, the reputation I was building in the business world was entirely my own. Once I established my empire, it would belong to me alone. No matter how much gold Julian had gilding his name, people would still whisper behind his back that he was living off his wife's success. Julian didn't beat around the bush. You can invest and start your own business however you like. If you need resources, connections, or funding, just ask. But today I came to see you because a friend of mine is interested in a piece of land you own in the southern suburbs. He wants to build a shopping mall there. Name your price. The southern suburbs were currently under development, with hospitals, schools, and office buildings being relocated there. Constructing a large shopping mall would be a guaranteed gold mine. I had originally planned to develop it myself, but later decided it wasn't worth the slow returns. Brick-and-mortar businesses were bound to decline in the coming years. It wasn't worth locking up capital in them. I smiled and nodded graciously. We're family, aren't we? Your friend is my friend. Why talk about money? I'll have the land title sent over first thing tomorrow. Julian, the ever-detached seeker, actually froze with his teacup in hand. That land, it was the very one I had purchased on our wedding day after selling off the billion-dollar estate he had gifted me and pouring all my stock market earnings into it. If I sold it now, I would be making at least 4 times my original investment. But here I was, handing it over for free. Of course, I wasn't actually that generous. I was using the classic strategy of retreating to advance. If I didn't name a price, the only way for them to compensate me was by offering the highest possible market rate. If they lowballed me, it would only make them look bad. Julian had seen all kinds of women in his life, but a woman like me who was both greedy and magnanimous at the same time was a first. He studied me for a long moment before finally speaking. What's your angle? I maintained a straight face and, without hesitation, spewed nonsense. Isn't it obvious? It's because I like you. 3 sentences, each one subtly cornering him. For the first time, his lips curved into a smile that was different from his usual polite smirk. There was something almost boyish about it. He raised an eyebrow and asked, amused, "You expect me to believe that?" Clearly, he didn't. After all, he was smart enough to see through Olivia's nonsense at the wedding. But this time, I wasn't lying. I explained, "You've met my parents. You know how they are, opportunistic and self-serving. Even if I hadn't married you, they would have sold me off to someone else for power and resources. You are objectively the best possible option I had. You prefer a quiet, detached lifestyle. I prefer to focus on business and making money. Our partnership is a win-win." Julian chuckled, his clear eyes glinting with interest. For his entire life, he had been forced to stay in the background, told to be humble, to never overshadow his older brother. But I was different, bold, ambitious, and unapologetically assertive. I was everything he had never dared to be. Before long, he started taking me to gatherings with his inner circle. Unlike Arthur's so-called elite social circle, young heirs who were nothing but spoiled trust-fund brats indulging in vice, Julian's circle consisted of true power players. These were the titans of industry, men whose time was so valuable that securing a dinner with them required booking months in advance. With my advantage of knowing the future, I quickly impressed them. Before long, I wasn't just discussing business deals with them, I was being invited to their private gatherings for tea. Powerful men admired strength in women just as much as women did in men. Julian's attitude toward me changed drastically. He started personally pouring my tea, preparing my favorite snacks, and even handling negotiations for prime office space I had my eye on. He even took it upon himself to help me recruit top talent from the industry. His attentiveness was meticulous. On the grand opening day of my influencer incubator, Olivia finally managed to win favor with Mrs. Miller, Arthur's mother. As a reward, she was handed control over the Fortune Group's hotel and jewelry business. She was all over the news, hailed as the ideal wealthy wife, graceful, capable, and ambitious. But as both daughters-in-law of the Miller family, things had to be fair. So I was also assigned a business to manage, the worst one, the fashion division. How bad was it? Since its launch, it had ranked dead last in profitability. No matter how much money was thrown into hiring top designers, nothing worked. Over the past 5 years, they had gone through at least 50 different creative directors, both domestic and international, without a single success. The industry openly mocked it as the biggest failure in Fortune Group's history. Clearly, this was meant to humiliate me. Julian frowned slightly, displeased. "Tourism is booming right now. I'll talk to my parents and get you reassigned," Julian offered. I waved him off confidently. I love turning the tide when the odds are against me. Just give me a month. Wait and see. His lips curved slightly, admiration flickering in his gaze. That confident? I nodded firmly. Of course. There are some industries I wouldn't bet on, but reviving Fortune Group's fashion brand? That's already something I've done once before. It was precisely this accomplishment in my past life that had won over my highly critical in-laws, making them trust my judgment completely. But this time, I wasn't stopping at domestic success. I aimed to push the brand into the global top 50 luxury labels to reach even greater heights. Julian verbally expressed his trust in me, but deep down he was still worried that I might run the company's fashion division into the ground. For the first time, he stopped visiting temples, stopped discussing philosophy with monks, and instead began following me everywhere. He worried someone at the company would try to sabotage me, or that I wouldn't be able to navigate the internal politics. But once he stepped into the company with me, he quickly realized that I wasn't the type to be bullied. Without hesitation, I fired 2/3 of the old employees, most of whom were just there for an easy paycheck, relying on connections rather than competence. They had driven away genuinely talented newcomers, stifling any chance of progress. When they tried to appeal to higher management, Julian personally shut them down. By the afternoon, they had all quietly submitted their resignation letters. Next, I went to the country's top art schools, asking professors to recommend their best students. Those who performed well were offered direct employment. Every week, I held theme design competitions with the first prize at $30,000, the second at $20,000, and the third at $10,000. Winners would be immediately hired as full-time designers. This way, students could study while gaining real-world experience, and those with real talent could secure a job before graduation. It was an irresistible opportunity. The competition was fierce, with young talents fighting tooth and nail for a spot. They got money and career prospects, while I acquired fresh, high-quality designs at a fraction of the cost. At the same time, I launched a digital marketing campaign, gaining massive exposure. Finally, I held a fashion launch event, inviting industry leaders, socialites, and celebrities. No one dared to turn down an invitation from Fortune Group. They all attended expecting just another formal networking event, only to be surprised by what they saw. The designs were genuinely stunning. By the end of the show, every showcase piece had been pre-ordered on the spot, and the new collections were completely sold out. A decade of financial losses recovered in one move, and with that, my name became a legend in the industry. Meanwhile, I also set my sights on Olivia's hotel and jewelry businesses. It didn't take much to expose hygiene violations at her hotels. Videos of towels being used to wipe toilet seats went viral. Then accusations surfaced that her jewelry designs were plagiarized. When taking down an opponent, aim for the weakest spot. Olivia, who had once boasted that she would always be ahead of me, was dealt a devastating blow. Desperate to save face, she poured a fortune into suppressing the negative press, but by then it was too late. People saw her for what she was, an incompetent fraud. Then came old Master Miller's birthday. It was a small family gathering, only 3 tables of relatives. In the past, Arthur had always been the star of these events, showered with praise and flattery as the heir apparent. But this time, when I arrived holding Julian's arm, the dynamic shifted. Relatives who had once ignored him now stood to toast him, offering words of admiration. Of course, in such situations, I modestly credited Julian for everything. Even old Master Miller himself offered Julian a seat beside him, an unprecedented move. To me, these gestures were meaningless, just another superficial display. But for Julian, who had never received such recognition before, it was monumental. That night, for the first time in his life, he drank in front of others. He got tipsy, and when we got home, he seduced me. His usually cold and detached eyes were clouded with desire, his toned 8-pack gleaming under the dim lights. He was surprisingly eager and enticing. I was no innocent girl, and a man like this, it would be a waste not to enjoy him. That night, Julian, who had once lived like a celibate monk, was thoroughly broken in. After getting a taste, he became insatiable. He clung to me constantly at night and even snuck in moments during the day. And he became even more generous. First, he gifted me high-end jewelry and real estate. Then he transferred 5% of Fortune Group shares to me. It might seem small, but those 5% shares brought in tens of millions in annual dividends and, more importantly, they secured me a seat on the board of directors. Olivia? She didn't get anything. After her business failures, she was removed from key positions and reassigned to minor, irrelevant projects, nothing more than a glorified retirement plan. When we crossed paths in the office, I could see the bitterness in her gaze, the barely restrained envy. But since Julian was always by my side, she couldn't lash out directly. Instead, she resorted to texting me. Olivia sent a video call request. I picked up unimpressed. Elena, her voice was low, seething with resentment. You must be feeling pretty smug right now, Olivia sneered through the video call. Everyone's praising you, saying you're so capable, so amazing. I chuckled lightly, my voice calm and deliberate. And why shouldn't I be? A brand that was irrelevant for 10 years became a sensation overnight the moment I took over. I've been featured in magazines and newspapers, hailed as the most legendary rising star in fashion. Is there a problem with that? Olivia's face turned red with fury. She snapped, "You just got lucky. What's there to be so proud of? If I had taken over that project, I would have done it even better. And even if you did succeed, so what? At the end of the day, my husband is the one inheriting the company. I am the rightful Mrs. Miller. You and your husband's dividends still have to pass through our hands. Once Arthur inherits Fortune Group, the first thing I'll do is kick you out. Just wait and see." I smirked, my tone laced with mockery. Kick me out? And how exactly do you plan on doing that? I own 5% of the company shares now. You'd better pray my dear husband stays as passive and indifferent as always. Otherwise, Fortune Group might just end up with a new master. With that, I hung up the call, leaving Olivia seething with frustration and drowning in the realization that she was facing a threat she had never anticipated. From that moment on, She became obsessed with pushing Arthur to work harder, pressuring him into new investments and projects, urging him to prove himself. Unfortunately for her, Arthur had spent his entire life indulging in luxury and debauchery. He wasn't built for hard work. The more she pushed, the more he resented her. Sure enough, at the next family gathering, Arthur, usually composed and gentlemanly in public, lost his temper at Olivia in front of everyone. His voice was sharp, his words dripping with disdain. "Can you just shut the hell up already? You keep comparing me to Julian. If you think he's so amazing, why didn't you just marry him instead? And you have the audacity to criticize me. If you had even half the intelligence of my sister-in-law, maybe you wouldn't have run the hotel business into the ground. Marrying you was the worst damn luck of my life." His furious outburst silenced the entire room. All eyes turned toward them. Olivia, who had been spoiled and coddled her whole life, had never experienced such public humiliation before. Her face turned bright red, her voice trembling with grievance. "I did all of this for you. You're the eldest son. You're supposed to take on more responsibility. And the hotel's failure isn't just my fault. I asked for your help, but you were always too busy to care." She was an expert at playing the victim, at twisting the narrative to absolve herself of blame. But unfortunately for her, Arthur had grown up surrounded by women his whole life. He had seen every manipulative trick in the book, and he had long since lost patience for them. "Cut the damn act," he spat, his face twisted in disgust. "I've put up with this bullshit for too long." With that, he turned and stormed off, leaving Olivia humiliated, surrounded by whispers and judgmental stares. But I wasn't done yet. That very night, I made arrangements for Arthur's true love to make a grand entrance, a stunning beauty from Thailand, one of the most famous transgender women in the industry, gorgeous with an impeccable figure and, most importantly, someone who knew exactly how to play the part. The moment I saw the footage from my private investigator, I only managed to stomach 0.01 seconds of it before shutting it off. It was vile. I anonymously forwarded the video to Olivia along with the name of the bar and the private suite number. Half an hour later, she stormed into the club, livid. She wasn't alone. She had brought a whole entourage of her friends, ready for war. But this time, Arthur didn't react the way he usually did. In the past, whenever Olivia caught him with other women, he would let her cause a scene, allowing her to slap and chase off the mistresses to make her feel like she had the upper hand. But this time, Arthur protected the transgender woman. Not only that, but he turned around and slapped Olivia twice. Olivia was stunned, completely dumbfounded. Then she snapped. Screaming, she lunged at Arthur, punching and kicking him in a blind rage. But Arthur was already drunk and disgusted with her. This time, he didn't bother holding back. He fought back without mercy. His so-called friends, who had once cheered her on when she fought off his previous flings, did nothing to stop him. Instead, they laughed and egged him on. It wasn't until a waiter came in to serve drinks and saw the commotion that security was finally called in to break it up. Olivia was rushed to the hospital with 3 broken ribs, a fractured nose, and she still had no idea this was only the beginning. Olivia also suffered a concussion that night. The Miller family's direct relatives all went to the hospital to visit her. She lay in a luxurious VIP hospital suite, her body wrapped in bandages, surrounded by extravagant floral arrangements and fruit baskets. She basked in the attention, enjoying the lavish display of sympathy as everyone comforted her, calling her a victim and scolding Arthur for being too brutal. They demanded that he apologize. But Arthur, when drunk, was completely out of control. Not only did he refuse to apologize, but he cursed loudly. She deserved to get hit. She throws tantrums at home every damn day, and now she's trying to control me even outside. She's just a shameless bitch who doesn't know her place. Old Master Miller was so enraged that he slapped Arthur twice on the spot. "You worthless scum. If you keep this up, you're no son of mine." That sobered Arthur up real quick. His lifelong dream had been to inherit Fortune Group. Realizing the severity of the situation, he immediately bowed his head and apologized profusely. He swore that he would never fool around again, never lay a hand on Olivia again. To prove his sincerity, he even promised to gift her a private estate worth over $60 million. This was all Olivia needed to hear. Her anger dissipated instantly, and she softened her stance, acting as if she had only lashed out because she loved him too much. And just like that, they made up. A scumbag and a fool. Truly a match made in heaven. After the commotion, Olivia specifically asked me to stay behind. She gave me a condescending smile and said, "Sisters fight, couples fight, it's all normal. If there's no fighting, there's no love. Don't be fooled by how bad I look right now, it's really not that serious. I just need a few days of rest and I'll be fine. Besides, after all this, everyone now knows how devoted I am. Arthur feels guilty, and I even got a whole new estate out of it. So in the end, I won." Her ridiculous self-rationalization was so absurd that I actually laughed. "Olivia, you really are cheap. So you traded half your life for a $60 million estate? That's all it took." She smirked, her tone filled with superiority. "You wouldn't understand. Unlike your husband, mine actually comes home every night. You're practically living like a widow. What's the point of having a man if he's never around? At least I have a husband by my side." I let out a cold chuckle, my voice dripping with mockery. I may not understand the fun of physical fights in a marriage, but I do know one thing. Arthur has very unusual tastes. He's not exactly picky about his partners, if you know what I mean. You might want to get tested for STDs just in case. Olivia's face turned deathly pale. Her voice trembled as she stammered, That's impossible. He wouldn't do that to me." But even as she denied it, her hands frantically pressed the call button for the hospital staff. She had been so focused on getting pregnant and securing her position as Mrs. Miller that she hadn't taken any precautions. While she rushed to get tested, I wasn't idle either. I anonymously uploaded Arthur's most incriminating videos, the ones of him fooling around with transgender escorts and physically assaulting Olivia, to multiple platforms and websites. It was the perfect time for the public to feast on the drama. And the cherry on top, Olivia's test results came back. She wasn't pregnant, but she had contracted several sexually transmitted diseases, some of which would stay on her medical record forever. Treatment would be lifelong, and if she still wanted children, she'd have to wait at least 3 years. At the same time, Arthur's scandal went viral. The internet exploded with outrage, calling him a monster for both his chaotic private life and his abusive behavior. Fortune Group stock plummeted, losing nearly $570 million in value overnight. Public trust in the company was at an all-time low. A shareholders' emergency meeting was called immediately. Arthur, who held the position of vice president, had no choice but to resign. But I wasn't finished. To fully bury him, I also leaked videos of his closest friends, drugs, orgies, underage girls, their entire dirty history laid bare. One by one, they were arrested and subjected to drug tests. Arthur, of course, was among them. While his test came back negative, it didn't matter. The public had already made up their minds. No one believed him. His reputation was completely ruined. With Arthur's downfall, all of his shares were retracted and reassigned to Julian. Julian had been at home, casually sipping tea and carving a lotus flower bracelet for me when the news hit. A single move, and just like that, he had gone from a sidelined second son to the sole heir of Fortune Group. As a teenager, Julian had once dreamed of proving himself, of earning the same respect and recognition that Arthur had always received. But over time, he had grown disillusioned with his biased parents, retreating into his quiet world of meditation and business indifference. But now, with power handed to him, he didn't refuse it. More importantly, he couldn't refuse it. Enjoying power came with the responsibility of wielding it. Soon after, he was officially appointed CEO of Fortune Group. And I was made vice president. Now, not only was I one of the most powerful figures in the company, but I also controlled some of the hottest industries in the market. Just like in my past life, only this time I wasn't just playing the game, I was winning it. I had become unstoppable. Just as I reached the top 10 on the national wealth rankings, Olivia was discharged from the hospital. She wasted no time before storming into my office. Her once delicate and elegant face was now haggard, exhaustion written all over her, bloodshot eyes, dark circles, and a bandaged right hand. She looked nothing like the proud, arrogant woman she once was. She didn't bother with pleasantries, charging straight toward me with fury. "Elena, you shameless bitch. How dare you steal my husband's company? I'm warning you. Give everything back to Arthur immediately, or else." Before I could even respond, a cold voice rang out from the doorway. "Are you threatening my wife?" Olivia flinched violently, her body tensing in fear. She turned around, and the moment she saw Julian standing there, a chill ran down her spine. The memories of his methods from our past life still haunted her. She swallowed nervously, forcing an ingratiating smile. "You misunderstand, Julian," she stammered. "I was just joking with my sister. We grew up talking like this. It's just a habit. She's my own sister. I care about her deeply." Julian let out a cold scoff, his gaze sharp and piercing. "You'd better hope that's true." With that, he walked over to me, pulling out a lotus seed bracelet he had spent over a month carving by hand. Gently, he slipped it onto my wrist. "Elena, I took this to the temple for a blessing. It's been consecrated. It'll protect you from harm," he said softly. His long, slender fingers bore the marks of countless small cuts from carving the delicate beads. His sincerity was plain to see. His amber eyes were filled with warmth, his voice unusually gentle. The scene deeply unsettled Olivia. Her pupils shrank, her expression shifting from disbelief to seething jealousy. In our past life, she had desperately wanted his love, but all she had gotten in return was torture and suffering. Biting her lip hard enough to draw blood, she forced herself to suppress her rage. She shot me one last venomous glare before turning and storming out. I knew what she was planning. She was going to retaliate. Just like in our past life, she would try to have me killed. Meanwhile, Arthur had completely fallen from grace. The louder and more extravagant his past life had been, the colder and more desolate his present became. He had once been surrounded by endless admirers, now there was no one left. And rather than blaming himself, he placed all the blame on Olivia. In his mind, if she hadn't chased him down that night, if she hadn't caused a scene, he never would have been caught on video. He never would have lost everything. Fueled by rage and alcohol, he started beating Olivia regularly. He would pin her to the ground, punching and kicking her while his beloved true love from Thailand watched in amusement. Sometimes he would even force Olivia to endure his public humiliation right in front of his drinking buddies. Even the private investigator I hired couldn't stomach the footage he sent me. "That man is worse than an animal," he spat in disgust. And he was right. I wasted no time compiling the evidence, videos of Arthur's violence, his financial fraud, his embezzlement, and his involvement in smuggling operations. I was ready to bury him. But before I could act, Olivia came looking for me. She even brought coffee. She asked to meet me on the rooftop, the exact same setup as in our past life. I accepted her invitation without hesitation. When I arrived, the wind whipped through Olivia's crimson silk dress, making the fabric flutter dramatically. Her exposed skin was covered in bruises and cigarette burns. As I stepped forward, she turned to me, her lips curling into an eerie smile. "Elena," she murmured, her voice ice cold. "You really are easy to fool." Feigning confusion, I tilted my head. "What do you mean?" She took slow, deliberate steps toward me, her smile twisting into something sinister. "Do you believe in past lives?" she asked mockingly. "Of course, it doesn't matter if you don't, because I do. And I can tell you one thing, in our past life, you died by my hands." I said nothing, letting her continue. "This is the 27th floor," she mused, glancing at the edge of the rooftop. "If you fall from here, every bone in your body will shatter. You'll be nothing but a pile of mangled flesh. A terrifying, painful death." Her grip tightened on something at her waist, a knife. "I originally wanted to let Arthur destroy you," she continued. "I wanted you to be tortured and humiliated until you died a miserable death. But somehow you made Julian fall for you instead. No matter. I'll just send you off myself." She pulled out the knife, pressing it against my stomach. Her smile widened, her eyes gleaming with madness. "Any last words?" she sneered. "If I'm in a good mood, maybe I'll grant you a final wish." I let out a soft chuckle. "Since we're being so honest, let me tell you a little secret too." Olivia's eyes narrowed. "What secret?" I leaned in slightly, my voice a whisper of amusement. "I've always known Arthur was nothing but a pathetic, diseased piece of trash. I knew he was incompetent. I knew he had STDs because, dear sister, I was reborn too." Her eyes widened in shock. "You. But that's not the best part," I continued smoothly. "The real reason I came here tonight is because this time you get to experience what it's like to fall to your death." With that, I lunged forward, shoving her. Panic-stricken, Olivia instinctively thrust the knife at me in desperation, and in that split second, the rooftop door burst open. Armed police officers swarmed in, their guns drawn. "Drop the weapon," one of them barked. Olivia froze, her entire body trembling. I smiled, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "My dear sister," I whispered, my tone dripping with mockery. "Did you really think I'd let you die so easily? That would be far too merciful." It was only then that she realized she had walked straight into my trap. In a last desperate attempt, Olivia tried to grab me and drag me down with her, but the police were faster. With a swift kick, one of the officers sent her crashing to the ground. I crouched down beside her, smiling as I whispered, "Congratulations, sister. What was originally a 5 to 10-year sentence has now increased to over 10. Olivia was convicted of attempted murder, 15 years. Of course, the people I had arranged inside were already waiting for her. Every second of those 15 years would be pure hell for her. And the day she was finally released? That would be the real judgment day. As for Arthur, his fate was sealed as well. He received a 25-year sentence, maximum penalty. Rape of a minor, human trafficking, smuggling, financial fraud, the list went on. A man like him was the lowest of the low. In prison, even without me lifting a finger, he would be tormented to his last breath. That same day, Julian officially stepped down from the forefront of Fortune Group, assuming a symbolic role. He publicly declared that I would be the true leader of the company. At the shareholders' meeting, he stood tall and addressed the room with unwavering confidence. "Elena is more capable than any vice president this company has ever had. Only under her leadership can Fortune Group reach the pinnacle of this industry. Don't ever say that a woman is weaker than a man, and don't ever say that a woman can't handle this responsibility. I dare say that not a single person here, not even myself, is more qualified than her." He swept his gaze across the silent boardroom. "Understand this clearly. We need her as our CEO. She does not need us." A long moment of silence followed. Then Julian personally stepped forward, opened the door, and invited me inside. One by one, the board members stood up, bowing their heads in respect. "Good afternoon, President Elena." I took my seat at the head of the table, a smile playing on my lips. "Shall we begin the meeting?" Under my leadership, Fortune Group didn't just regain its former glory, it soared to the top of the industry. Every sector I invested in flourished, becoming a benchmark for business success. The name Elena Miller became synonymous with power, wealth, and dominance. Julian, true to his word, remained in the background, allowing me to take full control. He continued his peaceful, reserved lifestyle, occasionally attending industry events when necessary. But behind closed doors, he was anything but distant. With each passing day, he grew more possessive, indulging in his newfound addiction, me. As for Olivia, prison shattered her. Gone was the arrogant woman who once boasted about her status. Years of torment broke her spirit, and when she was finally released, she was nothing but a shell of her former self. The moment she stepped outside, reporters swarmed her, ready to broadcast her disgrace to the world. But she never made it far. That same night, she disappeared, vanishing without a trace. Rumors spread. Some said she fled the country in shame. Others claimed she was taken care of by the very people she had wronged. I never bothered to find out. Arthur? He never lasted. Within a few years, his body was found lifeless in his cell. Cause of death unknown. No one mourned him. No one cared. And me? I stood at the peak, looking down at the empire I had built. The revenge I sought was complete. The power I desired was in my grasp. And the man I once thought untouchable, the cold, distant Julian Miller, now belonged to me entirely. He leaned in one evening, his deep amber eyes locked onto mine, voice low and magnetic. "Elena," he murmured, tracing a finger along my wrist where the lotus seed bracelet still rested. "You have everything now. Power, wealth, respect. Tell me, what's next?" I smiled, slow and knowing. "The world," I whispered. And with that, I sealed my fate as the woman who had it all.